You're listening to Signal Lost, original alien fiction. New story every week. I'm glad you found the frequency.
Translation is an act of trust that runs in only one direction. When you decipher a dead language, the dead cannot object to what you make them say. You lean over their marks, their scratches, their pressed clay, their painted symbols, and you coax meaning out of them. And they have no way to tell you that you have got it wrong. The relationship is entirely one-sided. You reach back toward them. They cannot reach forward toward you. That is the whole comfort of the work. The silence you are translating is safe precisely because it is silent. I had spent 30 years leaning over silent things, confident that they could not lean back. My name is Dr. Ruth Ellery. I am 52 years old. I was, a decipherment specialist, which is a narrow and unglamorous corner of linguistics concerned with reading scripts and signals that no living person knows how to read. Undeciphered inscriptions, lost writing systems, the occasional cipher. I was good at it. It requires a particular kind of patience and a particular tolerance for being alone with a problem for years, and I had both. I am telling you this because 6 weeks ago, I made the one mistake my entire discipline is built to prevent. I translated something that could hear me do it. And I need you to understand, before I tell you what it said, that I did not stop when I should have. No one who does what I do ever stops. The whole shape of the personality that makes you good at this is the shape that cannot leave a thing half read. I got to the part where I should have burned my notes and walked into the sea, and instead I turned the page, because I had to know, because knowing is the only thing I have ever been for. So, let me tell you what it said, and then you will understand why I am recording this quickly while there is still time to record anything at all. It arrived on a Tuesday in the ordinary post in a padded envelope with no return address. Inside was a data drive and a single sheet of paper. On the paper, one line, printed, no signature. "You are the only person who can read this. I am sorry." The drive held a single audio file, 40 minutes of it. I recognized within the first few seconds of listening that it was not music and not speech in any language I knew, but that it was unmistakably structured. I have spent my life learning to feel the difference between noise and information, the way you might feel the difference between a random pile of stones and a wall. This was a wall. Someone had built it. Every instinct I had lit up at once. I found out later, much later, too late, where the recording had come from, that it had been made by an astronomer, that she had been visited and warned, and that copies of her 40 minutes had quietly circulated among a small number of specialists before being suppressed, each recipient assured it was a meaningless instrumentation artifact. 2 physicists had looked at it and pronounced it mathematical noise. One cryptographer had run it through his systems and found nothing and moved on. They had all made the same error. They had assumed that because it came from the sky, it would speak the language of the sky, mathematics, primes, the supposed universal grammar of physics that we always assume a signal from out there would use. They looked for equations. I did not look for equations. I look, professionally, for the fingerprints of a mind that intends to be understood. And the thing about this signal, the thing none of the physicists felt, because it is not a thing you can measure, only a thing you can recognize, was that it was not describing the universe. It was addressed to someone. It had the cadence of a document meant to be read, and I, alone among everyone who had received it, was equipped to read a document whose language did not yet exist. I cleared my calendar. I told no one. I began. I will not walk you through 6 weeks of decipherment, because it would take 6 weeks, but I want to give you the shape of it, because the shape is where the horror lives, in retrospect. At first, it resisted me completely, the way every unknown script does. Then, as always, it began to give. There were repeating units, the equivalent of words. There was a grammar, a consistent order in which those units appeared. There was, most tellingly, a delimiter, a short invariant packet that recurred at regular intervals, dividing the signal into entries. Once I saw the delimiter, I understood the top-level structure instantly, because it is a structure I have seen in 3,000-year-old clay and in modern spreadsheets alike. It was a list. Whatever this was, it was not a message in the sense of a letter or a story. It was a list of items, each separated from the next by that little repeating divider, each following the same internal grammar. Hundreds of entries. Then, as I got faster, I realized thousands. The 40 minutes was not the whole document. It was an excerpt from something vastly longer, a page torn from a ledger of unimaginable size. For about 10 days, I was happy. I want to be honest about that because it shames me now. I was happier than I had been in years. I had the most important undeciphered text in human history spread across my walls, and I was reading it, faster every day. And I did not once stop to ask what a list this size, broadcast in the structure of the sky itself, might be a list of. That is the arrogance the work breeds. You become so absorbed in how a thing means that you forget to be afraid of what it means. Then I cracked the internal grammar of a single entry, and I understood what the entries were. Each entry was a name. Not a name in any human writing system, but a name in the functional sense, a unique identifier for a single individual composed of consistent parts, a designation. And once I understood the grammar of one entry, I could read them all. And I sat in my office and I read them, one after another, thousands of them. And I understood with a slowly rising horror that I was reading a register of people. I could not have told you their faces or their nations. The names did not translate into sounds I could pronounce, but they translated into structure. This individual, then this one, then this one. The way a list of account numbers identifies people without naming them aloud. Each was distinct. Each was a person. And the list went on and on, past the edge of the 40-minute excerpt, into a length I could only infer and did not want to. And at the very top of the document, the header, the first thing that any reader was meant to see, positioned exactly where a title goes, was a single unit that did not follow the grammar of the names, a label for the whole list. I decoded it early and set it aside, because it meant nothing to me at the time. A place name, I assumed, a location. It was only a word. I did not understand why the word made the hair rise on my arms until much later, when I heard from a colleague about a coastal town that had emptied itself walking inland, every soul of it, toward a place none of them could name. The word at the top of the list was meridian. The list was a list of people, and it was filed, labeled, headed under a destination. I found my own name on a Thursday at 17 minutes past 3 in the morning, because by then I was not sleeping. I was only reading. I want to be careful about how I say this, because it is the part that no one believes, and I no longer have the energy to be doubted. I did not recognize my name the way you would recognize it written down. I recognized it the way you recognize yourself in a description. This person, of this kind, connected to these others. A structural fingerprint that could only have been me. The entry sat near the bottom of the excerpt, late in the list. And I knew, with the whole body certainty that the others in these accounts have described, that I was reading my own designation in a language that predated my birth by longer than I can stand to think about. Beside my entry, in the slot where each name carried one final piece of structure I had assumed was some kind of index number, was a value. I had decoded that field days earlier without understanding it. It was the one consistent element every entry carried, a single number, different for each name, that I had filed away as an identifier. It was not an identifier. Once I saw it beside my own name, I understood what it was, because mine was a number I recognized. It was close. It was a date, A specific date, some weeks ahead. Every name on the list had one. Thousands of people, each tagged with a date. And the dates were not random. I checked, feverishly, the ones I had translated. They were sequential, ordered. The list was not merely a register of people. It was a schedule. I understood then what I had done. The note in the envelope had told me the truth. You are the only person who can read this. The physicists had been safe in their incomprehension. The cryptographer had been safe. You cannot be summoned by a document you cannot read. But I had read it. I had reached back toward the silent thing, the way I had reached back toward the dead my whole life. And this thing was not dead, and it was not silent. And the instant I understood it, I had told it, in the only language it used, that I was a mind capable of understanding. I had answered a roll call that I did not know was being taken, and my name was near the bottom, which meant my date was soon. I stopped, of course. Far too late, but I stopped. I took every printout off my walls. I wiped the drive. I did the things you do when you want to pretend you can unknow something. But translation does not work that way. You cannot unread a language once you can read it. The knowledge is not in my notes, it is in me. I can still read it. I closed my eyes last night and I could see the grammar of it, clear as my own handwriting. And I understood that this is what it means to be marked. Not a symbol on the skin, but a change in the shape of your mind that cannot be reversed. I am a person who can now read that language. I will be that person until my date. There is no version of me left that cannot read it. Although there is also the symbol on the skin. I found it 4 days ago, on the inside of my left wrist, where I rest it against the desk when I write. 3 lines converging to a single point. I did not feel it arrive. I have stopped being surprised by it. And there is the letter. It came, as I understand it always comes. No stamp, no postmark. Under my office door in the night. 1 number in plain black ink. 1033.7. By now, I did not need to be told what it was. I had already read, in the structure of the sky, the ledger it belongs to. I have thought a great deal in these last weeks about the note in the envelope. You are the only person who can read this. I am sorry. I used to think it was a warning that arrived too late to save me. I think now it was something else. I think whoever sent it was themselves on the list, somewhere above me, with an earlier date, and understood that the list requires readers, that a schedule is only meaningful to something that can be summoned by it, that they were passing the reading of it to me the way you pass a torch or a curse, so that the next reader would exist, and the roll call could go on being answered. I do not know who I am supposed to send it to. I have decided the answer is no one. I am recording this instead. Let the list end with a reader who read it and told the truth and sent it nowhere. If that is even a choice I am permitted to make. My name is Dr. Ruth Ellery. I spent my life believing that understanding was a safe act, that to comprehend a thing was to have power over it, and never the reverse. Every script I ever cracked, every silence I ever made speak, confirmed it. The dead stayed dead, and I grew wiser on their remains, and nothing I ever translated so much as stirred. I was wrong about the direction of it. Understanding is not a wall you stand behind looking out. It is a door, and it opens both ways. And every language you learn to read is a language that has, in that instant, learned to be read by you, which is to say, learned where you are. There is a list. It is longer than any of us could stand to know. It is headed with the name of a place people are already walking toward without knowing why. Every person on it carries a date, and the dates are in order, and the list is being read aloud, somewhere in the structure of the sky, by something patient enough to have written it and to wait for each name to come due. I read ahead. That is my whole crime and my whole story. I was a translator, and I could not leave the document half-read, and so I know my own date, which most of the people on that list will never know is coming. I will not tell you whether knowing is better or worse. Robert Hale, whose son's photograph you may have heard of, said the same. And he was right. Some knowledge is neither comfort nor terror. It is simply a room you now live in. I live in the room of my own translation, and the date is soon. My name is Dr. Ruth Ellery, and this was my signal.
Signal lost. New story every week. Have you heard the frequency?